In 2006, Federated Department Stores rebranded Marshall Field and Company as Macy's. Marshall Field himself famously said, "Give the lady what she wants." 19 years later, Macy's finally gave us what we wanted. Welcome. Welcome to this special edition of Coffee Hour. Macy's celebrating the legacy and history of Marshall Field. I'm Stanley Smith, and recently I scoped out the State Street store during the holiday season. Take a look at some of the fantastic window displays and interior decorations. The theme this season was these, terrific storytelling, and they start off the window at State and Randolph with the book opening up to a scene of the Tiffany Dome with a squadron of deer and trumpets flying overhead and some Macy's gifts. And all under the banner of Marshall Field. When Macy's took over the Marshall Field branding in 2006, Mayor Daley, I remember him saying, it's possible someday the Marshall Field name will return, and that always stuck in my head. And here we see it. Never thought we'd see the name again in the State Street store, but there it is. Fun start to the season. Playing off the legacy and history of the entire Marshall Field legacy. The clock, one of the great clocks, is depicted here in the window with the clock face open and looking into making a list and checking it twice over the cityscape neighborhoods of Chicago, which makes it so great. I think this is a cutout of the Associates building at Michigan and Randolph, and I think this might be the Pittsfield building at Washington and Wabash. Frango Kitchen. So Frango is still available for sale at the Macy's store in State, and it's part of the Marshall Field history. Wonderful stories. That's indeed the theme of the State Street windows. The store itself, the State Street facade, is depicted here with the clocks at each end and the trumpets and all the little gift ideas, along with the cars, which to me in the history of Fields kind of forebodes the expansion of the suburbs, which suburban retailing, which kind of contributed to the decline of State Street overall. But here, it's all a joyful scene. This window is depicting the main aisle, the South State Street room under the Tiffany Dome, this reindeer display on these ledges. And I'm going to point this out because I see this kind of exemplified in the interior of the store this year. On this particular vision, they're rolling out the red carpet. This is reference to this historical shot of the main aisle, the South State Street room under the Tiffany Dome. I mean, my experts will check. I think this is 30s or 40s. I think it's the 40s of the main aisle. But, the ledges and these really spectacular displays overhead. When I worked at Fields on the 13th floor, there was a whole hallway between Visual and the carpenter shop, which had photo after photo after photo every year of the spectacular displays on the State Street main aisle. And again, just flashing back and forth between the two scenes. That's pretty fun. Even if you don't know the history, it's great that they're lifting it up and elevating the past. The walnut room tree is also depicted in the State Street windows, and that is reference to the historic photos, which are also available for view on the 7th floor, a little mini museum at the State Street store. Interesting that this particular picture does show this additional floors that are not present in the walnut room currently. It was leveled over, I believe, at the 9th floor. So the atrium did go up a couple more floors at least. And when I worked at Fields, people did mention how there had been a second Tiffany Dome. I've never seen a picture of a Tiffany Dome other than the one we know on the first seat visible from the first floor. But this indicates that something had to be up there, whether it was the coppered ceiling that was recreated in the current walnut room, or if it was indeed some sort of a lesser Tiffany Dome installation. I don't know, but fun historical picture referencing the current walnut room tree depiction. So this window is at the corner of State and Washington, and this is a very simple window, but charming, and it points to this French market, which they've installed on the 7th floor for the season, and I liked it. It's just, pointing in the direction of the green on green stripe, very simple presentation, and also this pine cone theme, which we'll see later on the tour. So in the inside of the store, they rolled out the green carpet, and I did notice this early in the season, probably in October. They were installing the green carpet, and that kind of gave us the heads up that something different was coming this season at the Macy's State Street store, and also mentioning those ledges. So here they've kind of carved out some common space for decoration on top of these vendor pavilions, which speaks to the past. In the past, these would have been big counters with a center island with a big platform in each quadrant. And that's where they would have launched these spectacular displays. But it's a nice little nod, making something. And we've seen this on other retailers this season around the city of Chicago. And this is the North State Room, similar configuration. They actually create a big platform. So in this picture, it's kind of hard to see, but these are pylons lifting up an entire elevated platform that's over the entire handbag and accessory department. And we saw this under construction earlier in the year. I think it was October, and they were preparing the fashion, all green and gold and black and white, and a lot of gold and green decorations. You can see some columns wrapped with the greenery. It's kind of a nice touch. Again, the ledge decor with this green and gold stripe, garlands, and they've added a lot more of these garlands over these in between columns here. And this is the mid-state room. And I could give a whole lecture about how they kind of reoriented the building over the time. In my time, the main aisle was between north and state, going north and south. And now they've kind of reoriented the store going east and west with a lot of garlands and trying to create a main aisle access across the store, which never existed previously. This is just a close-up of the green and gold stripe combination, which is pleasant enough. It obviously speaks to the traditional Marshall Field green color, along with variations on the theme. And here we see that used for a cosmetic outpost on the first floor. Very nice, very clean, simple. A lot of festive garlands everywhere, tasteful. Here's another shot of the mid-state room showing these garlands, kind of creating a access across the store. The chandeliers, which were installed after they closed the Water Tower store. These chandeliers originally were at the North Michigan Avenue location. And when that store closed, they brought the chandeliers here and installed them in the mid-state room. I have mixed feelings about that. I think it's a little too interior-ish for this particular space, which serves more as a public space. They probably should be upstairs, but it's very glitzy, very flashy, very fancy, quote unquote fancy. People pleaser. And also I could give a small lecture on some of the column ordering in the store, which I never noticed, but as I've scrutinized the store more closely, as it's really evolved, I will give Macy's credit for cleaning it up and elevating the experience overall. You can appreciate some of the variation. So in this mid-state room, there are a really maximum number of columns. Also in the North State room. On the Wabash side, you'll see that when they built that portion of the store later, for whatever reason, they used fewer columns. And the same thing with the South State room. There are fewer columns, they're just larger. Also on the Wabash side, they still have somewhat of a cream and white color scheme. Where on State Street side, it's this very kind of harsh white, everything's just pure white. Something to look at next time you're in the store, see which one is more pleasing to you. Another close-up. This is the Wabash side. This is the South Wabash room, the fine jewelry department. And it's hard to make out, but this is actually a cream, and then the ceiling is white. It just is somewhat softer. And these are original, at least to my recollection, all the time that I've known Fields and Macy's building, these are original chandeliers to this room. This is the oldest section of the building from the 1800s. Another close-up of the chandeliers from Water Tower Place, some of the garlands and ornaments. It's very tasteful. It's very, very attractive, very pretty, very bright. Could not be more bright or inviting. This is a view down the Wabash main aisle, and the columns here are slightly wider apart. So they've maintained this access north and south on the Wabash side for some reason, and it's very nice. This used to be the men's department, of course. Actually, it still is the men's department, but when they closed the men's store across Washington Street, This is where they brought that into the store years ago. Always like to include a glimpse of the past. This is the elevator bank on Wabash side of the store. It's identical to the one of the banks on the State Street side. Kind of the classic department store look that's unchanging, enduring, and unchanging. The escalators going up between these in the center part of the store. I was so struck by this because the velvet on the roping is green, this really beautiful hunter green. Thought that was a great touch. Assuming they ordered that special, it coordinates with all the other branding. Back here, you can see the original atrium from the 90s renovation, which has the green marble and green color borders, which, was definitely part of the Marshall Field branding when they installed that all in the 90s. It's still here. And they went to the trouble to tie in the velvet roping this season. Very nice. And this is another view of the railing from that 90s renovation with the green marble and some of the colors from the displays this season, calling out the green Marshall Field heritage. And I included this just to show where that all tops off at the seventh floor, not to cast aspersions, but of course, the store in the past continued up to 8 and 9. I think even some services were on 10. And then, of course, the visual display department and carpentry shop were on 12 and 13. Interior design services, employee cafeteria. It was kind of, I was perceiving as kind of a sad note that they kind of topped off the store experience, but the average customer probably wouldn't know the difference. And then on each landing of the central corridor of the store, they have this wonderful stories theme with fashion, men's and women's, kind of creating a backdrop for people escalating through the store. Very tasteful, very nice. They do have the nod to the Macy's star, but it's not in your face. There's nothing wrong with the Macy's brand. It's just very New York. And when we're in New York, we love New York. But I think most of us have a soft spot for Chicago. And Marshall Fields was so strongly identified and associated with Chicago. It's hard to separate the two. Another view of one of these interior displays with the merchandising and the mannequins and the branding and the stripe. It's all very tasteful and all very lush and deluxe. They really pulled out the stops wherever they did displays. I will say they didn't decorate the entire store, but they did this nice smattering of very lavish displays in a number of different focal places, which was very smart. Another men's display, women's, pretty tidy. It's pretty buttoned up. It's very slick. It's very sophisticated. Couldn't be cleaner or nicely, any more nicely presented than that. Even in housewares and home, it's all done up very nicely. On some of the common areas of the store, just the merchandise, straight up merchandising is all very nice, very tasteful. Whenever they can, they're pulling out the green. This guy's got his green sweater on, and I pulled my green sweater out of the my archives for this video. So here are the pine cones that we saw in the light box on Washington. Thought these were kind of fun. There's a number of these all over the store in different departments, and it's kind of a zany, overscale. It's what you come downtown for, to see something. Where are you going to see a giant pine cone? There you go. And this is looking off into the North State Lightwell room. If you're in the store, you notice some of these capitals in this atrium are also from the 90s renovation when these in my time were always creamy white. They were never polychromed like this, but that was part of the 90s re-envisioning of Field's legacy. And for some reason, these are still in this color scheme. I don't quite understand if Macy's didn't know that was a modern iteration, or if they think that's historic. I don't know, but don't tell anybody that I told you. It's the view of a men's landing, very nice, looking into the atrium, lovely, with the historic clock architectural details, and beautifully merchandised. The visual team is doing a great job pulling all the mannequins and looks and merchandising together. The store could not be better merchandised. It's very, very well done. We'll pass through and one of these bridges between North State and Wabash rooms. The store originally was connected by 3 different bridges, they called it, like the North Bridge across the alley. There was a mid-state bridge that crossed over, and then there was the South State. And when they renovated, they took out some of the bridges and created the central atrium. Part of the experience of shopping at Fields is that you always had to go outside to get inside because you had to cross over through the alley from the State Street side to the Wabash side. It's always kind of a bracing moment of darting over across the alley to get to the other side of the store. Now we have pretty much just have the central corridor in the store to cross over from each side. Another landing display with some glitzy, glamorous evening wear. And just a common area. I included this because as I was walking through the store and how it's evolved, and I really it's been cleaned up and elevated in many different ways. When I worked there, it was had some rough spots. It was a big old department store, but it's been really refreshed over the years. But this I thought was almost crossing over where it's so resolved, it's so cleaned up, so scrubbed up that it could be anywhere. I lost all sense of being in any particular landmark building, but very nice nonetheless. Another historic parts of the store, 28 shop, even though it doesn't quite function as a 28 shop, it's still branded and it's a nice enough experience. It's pretty much evening gowns, but very nicely merchandised and very nicely displayed with these white flocked trees and evening gowns in the area designated as the 28 shop. On the seventh floor, they have the Trimetry shop combined with the historic museum displays showing different artifacts and history of Marshall Field and Company. Part of the Trimetry shop, these are pretty beautiful, really beautifully done. They had a number of doors. They had the kind of a door theme going on seven, kind of photo opportunities. If you're going to take your family photo, I'd suggest you just rush over there. There's a number of different settings that were perfect photo opportunities, very nicely done. Again, the exhibit of history past, the animated figures. So I believe this is the Uncle Mistletoe family of characters. And a lot of people, beat up Macy's and other department stores for it's not like it used to be, because people usually think of what it used to be were these animated windows. And I appreciate that. And okay, kind of cute, but you really look at the whole history and some of these examples that are on display, it can be from our time almost kind of creepy. These in particular, this is Cinderella and Snow White characters. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that would really go over in today's world, but they're on display here as artifacts from the past, from Christmas windows in the past. And then the Walnut Room on 7, which made a sensation this season on social media and in reservations. I think they said they had a 2-month waiting list. I think you can get in the middle of January. So they had a spectacular tree, all in the oxidized copper color from the clock and the Marshall Field green. Very pretty, complete with a giant Marshall Field shopping bag, which is really over the top. But it was very nice. This is as you approach the Walnut Room, and they found it necessary to rename the Walnut Room, the Marshall Field Walnut Room, which seems kind of redundant to me, but people seem to really appreciate it. This is another view of the room. And again, you can see the kind of truncated ceiling that most of us are familiar with. But if you look at some of the historic shots, you'll see that the Walnut Room atrium actually went up a number of more floors. A close-up of the giant Marshall Field bag with the trumpets sticking out and the frangos and the clock. Also on 7, I noticed this frieze, this Art Deco frieze, which also was from the Water Tower Place store in the fine jewelry department. And that when that closed, along with the chandeliers, they brought this over to State Street. I think it was in a couple of different places. I think it was on the first floor for a while until they leased part of the jewelry department out to Pandora. And they brought it up here, which is very nice. It's very lovely. But I did notice on the first floor, there is still one section of this beautiful mix and match Art Deco frieze. Also on 7, candy. I just included this to show some of the zany fun. It's what people come downtown to see, something different. I saw parents taking pictures of their kids in front of this. When are you gonna have a chance to have your picture taken in front of a pink fluorescent tree? So thank you, Macy's. And this is the French Market, branded as Marshall Field. Very nice atmosphere. They created a very nice festive atmosphere on 7. And then they populated it with vendors from the French Market. I believe it's two brothers who operate the French Market here on Canal Street, and they were tapped apparently on short notice to populate this market with vendors, food and candles and sundries, and it created a nice experience on the 7th floor. Uh, some branded merchandise also on the 7th floor with the Marshall Field name, these tumblers. Of course, there's tote bags, different gift ideas with the Marshall Field brand. Kind of ironic that the only place you can get the Marshall Field branded goods is at Macy's. I thought this was nice as part of the archive display, some vintage boxes and ornaments and wrappings. Very nicely done. This is classic display 101. It's kind of Neiman's-esque. It's kind of Marshall Field-esque. A lot of the things that's going on at Macy's is more about the way things are done, necessarily more so than just the color. So I think that's greatly appreciated, the attention to detail and care and thought and consideration of the customer. On the Randolph side of the store, Chip and the team put together some straight up fashion. This is kind of a lunar landscape, futuristic scene, which I appreciated. Out of all the holiday hustle bustle, something completely different to kind of cleanse the palate. And they went long and deep on this theme with 3 windows in a row of this monochromatic gray on gray. I have a friend across the hall who's dying to get this tunic top. So if you see her, stay out of her way because she's on a mission. Find this and other fashion this season. I just think that it's so important to always point ahead what's coming next and what's been in the past. It's been 19 years since we said goodbye to Marshall Field, and it was nice to see a new friend this season as we celebrate Christmas and Hanukkah and Ramadan. I'm reminded of the Jewish tradition. They believe that a person has 3 deaths: the physical death, the spiritual death, and then the last time someone says their name. And thanks to Macy's, we all got to say Marshall Field's name one more time. And as long as there's a focus on customer service and on beauty and on care and consideration, I think we'll be exemplifying that tradition for a long, long time. If you would like to join us at Coffee Hour for future discussions, I will include my email in the description of this video, and I'll be happy to send you an invitation. And I look forward to seeing you very, very soon.